It's early 1971. Across America in black communities, all anyone can talk about is a film, an Oscar-nominated documentary. It's about Jack Johnson, the first African-American heavyweight champion of the world. In 1910, Jack fought James Jeffries in front of thousands in Nevada, many eager to see their great white hope put the black champ in his place. In the 15th round, Jack's left hook sent Jeffries down. His victory triggered riots from some white Americans who couldn't accept one of their own being vanquished. Some of us in the diaspora, who had lost many of our generation's heroes, felt we needed a victory lap of any kind. Although that fight was 60 years before, that knockout punch still had a bolstering effect on many of us. In the 1970 documentary, Jack Johnson, directed by Jimmy Jacobs, we see iconic footage of Jack, 6 foot tall, over 200 pounds of him, still dancing around his opponents with lightning speed. Across America in black communities like mine, at that moment, it strikes a chord. The recent assassinations of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and the Kennedys are still very present, and seeing Jack's story captures and rekindles the civil rights spirit of resistance. But what hit me, like Jack hitting Jeffries, was the soundtrack I heard.
Jack Johnson.
Miles Davis on trumpet. And thrashing out that pulsating rhythm is legendary drummer Billy Cobham.
You want to move people, You want to give them a reason to move. You just want them to dance. What does boxers do best? They dance or get hit.
Man, this music is so powerful. Miles is shape-shifting again. But it's more than that. As a kid, Miles Davis Sr. took his son to boxing lessons. He grew up idolizing fighters like Jack Johnson, and later Sugar Ray Robinson, who rose from amateur to become the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Miles admired their talent, physical discipline, and relentless drive to be the best. He also loved how they lived the lives they wanted to live, without apologizing.
They were stars and celebrities to a broad audience with still a kind of black aesthetic sensibility.
Miles wrote in the liner notes, Johnson portrayed freedom. The more they hated him, the more money he made, the more women he got, and the more wine he drank. Miles wanted that freedom, to make demands and never say sorry. But that fighter instinct was double-edged. It gave him the strength to face down a racist industry, but it also made him a man who was hard to love, and sometimes dangerous to be near. I'm Clarke Peters, and this is Legend, the Miles Davis story. In this series, we're peeling back the many layers of a defiantly forward-looking musical genius who revolutionized jazz again and again and again. On his way, he also transformed how other artists, filmmakers, fashion designers, even actors like me, approach our craft. In this second chapter, we follow a fighter on the ropes. 20 years before he recorded that Jack Johnson soundtrack album, Miles Davis was a 23-year-old on the verge of being knocked out by drug addiction. This is the story of how he used that boxer's discipline to face his greatest demon, and how he fought his way back to find a new voice, his own sound, that would change the world. It's a late summer's day in 1949 in the New York borough of Queens, east of Manhattan across the river. It might well be warm outside, but Miles stands shivering and sniffling on a street corner. He feels like hell. Maybe it's a cold coming on. A shifty-looking guy he knows sidles up to him, asks how he is. Then the dealer comes out with it. "Miles, you gotta have it." "What do you mean?" Miles replies. "Your nose is running, you got chills, you weak." These past 3 months, Miles has been snorting cocaine and heroin. But he's been in denial about the toll it's taking on his body. On the surface, he's been trying to lead a normal family life, living in a quiet neighborhood in Queens with his partner Irene and their kids. In reality, he feels wretched, hollowed out. Just earlier that year, he'd been in Paris, where the color of his skin didn't matter, and where people knew who he was and loved his music. He'd also fallen deeply in love with a beautiful white French actress, Juliette Greco.
Of course, he misses her.
Farah Jasmine Griffin, professor of African American Studies at Columbia University, who specializes in black music history and literature.
I don't think he got over it. I mean, I think there's no surprise that when he comes back to the United States, he falls into a depression, not only because of missing Juliet.
Miles is out of work, feeling crushed by prejudice. Back in March, he'd been recording with his own band after securing a contract with Capitol Records. They released some songs, and the cool sound they created together had been inspiring other musicians on the West Coast, like Chet Baker and Dave Brubeck. But nothing he's recorded has sold much, and Capitol hadn't asked for more.
There's a certain amount of resentment that he feels because The Birth of the Cool doesn't make him a huge star on the back of it.
Kevin Legendre is a broadcaster, musical historian, and Miles aficionado.
The idea of him not being able to make as much money and not being able to have the profile that he should have had for The Birth of the Cool, that's obviously something which rankles.
When he'd first moved to New York in his teens, Miles had looked after himself. He was healthy, hadn't drunk much, and was always sharply turned out. The music had been everything. Now, standing here on this street corner, he's lovelorn, depressed, desperate for some kind of release. Miles's former mentor, the great Charlie Parker, had been an addict. But Miles had seen how heroin had transformed Charlie into an arrogant wreck who stole from his friends. He knows all of this. Even so, he needs a fix. Miles moves his family back into Manhattan, but they're hardly spending any time together. Miles says he's out performing. In reality, he's missing gigs, in bars, drinking late, spending his dwindling funds on his growing habit.
Rumors get out about him. People don't want to hire him. He's not looking as good as he usually looks. He's not as attentive to his beautiful appearance as he usually is.
One morning in 1951, Miles is slumped on the curbside in central Manhattan, nose streaming, totally out of it. Through dazed eyes, he spots an old friend from back in East St. Louis, trumpeter Clarke Terry, who had been a mentor to him.
I had come up out of Birdland. I noticed a hulk of something lying in the gutter on Broadway. I rolled over and I kicked it over so I could see the face, and there was Miles.
That's Clarke Terry speaking to Ian Carr in the BBC radio series Jazz File in 2001.
Tied him up a bit, brushed him off, and took him in to the ham and egg.
He manages to keep down some ham and eggs, but still feels terrible. Clarke takes Miles to his hotel. Miles sees Clarke's trumpet, clothes, his radio. It feels welcoming. He passes out on the bed. Clarke heads into town.
I came back about 3 hours later, and the door was open. So I said, what is this? No Miles. No trumpet, no radio, no record player, no nothing. No clothes, no nothing. So I looked around and said, well, He got me.
Miles has taken everything. He's doing exactly what his mentor Charlie Parker did to him: lying, neglecting his family, stealing. Miles pawns his own trumpet, even resorts to pimping out women to get extra drug money. For the next couple of years, Miles is in a cloudy haze, unable to think about anything but his next score. Then, in the winter of 1953, Miles is so desperate, he picks up the phone to his father, asks him to send him bus fare just so he can get home. Sitting on that long 20-hour bus ride, Miles comes to a stark realization. Either he kicks this thing now, or his life, let alone his dream, will be over. Miles makes his way to his father's ranch. He's emaciated. His nose is running, his clothes disheveled, and he smells terrible. Professor Farrah Jasmine Griffin.
He would have never planned to come back home in this way. He came from a family of success, generational success. There's anger, frustration with himself.
Proud Miles Davis Sr. is devastated to see his son like this, but he's not going to give up on him. Miles is taken away from the main house and sequestered in the guest house. Inside, Miles closes and locks the door. Sitting there, all alone at his lowest ebb, I can imagine Miles thinking about all his friends that addiction is ruining. Some are in jail, others are dead or close to it. But there's also a flicker of that blue flame, a spark of defiance that refuses to go out.
And he locks himself away in that space where he confronts the demon of his addiction.
This is not how he's going out.
He decides himself, kind of almost a mind over matter, that he is going to beat this thing cold turkey.
Miles thinks back to when he was a small kid growing up here, his dad taking him to boxing lessons. His mind conjures up images of boxing legends, the great Jack Johnson, and especially his current idol, Sugar Ray Robinson, the welterweight and middleweight champion, whose gym Miles trained at back in New York. He thinks of Sugar Ray's focus and his physical discipline. That's what Miles needs now.
And this is a very dangerous thing to do, cold turkey. It's one of those long nights of the soul, both emotionally, spiritually, and physically dangerous.
The next few days are torture. Miles's joints ache. He sweats buckets, but he keeps picturing Sugar Ray. Just like his hero, he's not going down, not giving up.
That's where we see Miles, the fighter. It wouldn't be his last struggle with addiction, but it would be the one that taught him that one could go through it and come out on the other side of it.
After 2 long, agonizing weeks, Miles Davis feels the pain beginning to lift, and his mind clearing. He's still weak, but for the first time in years, his thought is not of his next hit. He's come through the worst, and he's beginning to see a way back. It's his music, always the music. He starts working out, gradually forcing himself back into shape, keeping a picture of Sugar Ray Robinson always in his mind. Around 3 months after he went cold turkey, February 1954, Miles Davis is back in New York. Now, he has fire in his belly, keen to get back in the studio with a band and record. Here's Kevin Legendre.
He has this renewed energy. This drive has taken hold of him. It's almost like he's saying Miles Davis is back. here I am, you know, don't forget about me because I'm still relevant. I still have things to say.
The band starts laying down track after track, laying down a foundation for a handful of pioneering future albums, full of sensational, energized music.
They do give you this sense of the man who's on a mission, who's playing with determination, vigor, who's got some excellent players around him. So it's driving, swinging. But also Miles Davis, the ballad player. The romanticist in music, Miles Davis, who can generate a certain amount of sweetness and tenderness.
In Sugar Ray Robinson, Miles saw a man who used his invention and agility to surprise and outbox his opponents. Now Miles is channeling that same energy. His blue flame is burning bright. Miles is looking for his own knockout punch, a signature that is his and his alone. He begins to find it in a staple tool in the brass player's box, the mute. To understand how such a simple tool transformed his sound, I spoke to my good friend and Miles devotee, Guy Barker. Guy's a world-class trumpeter, and over his own 50-year career, he's learned a thing or two about mutes.
Mutes were created to give the trumpet and the trombone, any brass instrument really, a different sound, which just quieten things down.
And there's one particular mute that Miles is starting to love, called a Harmon mute.
A curious thing, like a toilet plunger, but on a piece of metal, which again is a kind of bowl shape, but it has a stem in it, which can be extended. So if I put the Harmon mute in, and it's kind of more of a nostalgic sound, I guess.
But Miles is more curious about how to create a sweeter, tender sound by adapting this mute. He has a couple of ideas.
Miles took the stem completely out. If you get closer to the microphone, what happens is it kind of kills the high overtones, and you get this really dark, more rich sound, more breathy, and it's just cooler.
Man, I get goosebumps just listening to this. From that moment, that Harmon mute is part of Miles's cool. He's using it constantly, in the studio, on the stage. It's what gives Miles his distinct, restrained, whispering, breathy sound that will forever be associated with him. Miles might be getting back to where he wants to be creatively, but his reputation is still mud for most promoters. He can't get hired for gigs, and without those, there's no money to support himself or his family. Not long after Miles is back in New York, his partner Irene, the mother of his kids, finally snaps. Overcome with emotion, she calls the police. Miles is arrested for non-child support, spends the night in New York's notorious Rikers Island jail. The next day, his lawyer arrives, but not with the news he expects. Charlie Parker, his former mentor, his original guiding light, is dead. He was just 34. It hits Miles hard. Maybe he thinks about using heroin again to numb the pain. But Miles stays focused, disciplined, like Sugar Ray Robinson. The best way to honor Charlie's memory is to get back on the hustle, fight on, and seize every chance that comes his way. get back on top. He doesn't know it yet, but one golden opportunity is just around the corner. It's early summer 1955. Miles hears about an open-air jazz festival at Newport, Rhode Island, just 3 hours' drive from New York. Count Basie is on the bill. So is Duke Ellington, some of the greats. Critics, record execs, everyone will be there. But Miles hasn't received an invitation. Late one night, sitting alone at a table at the back of a Manhattan nightclub, Miles spots a smartly dressed, smooth-talking jazz impresario called George Wein. Miles knows George, the organizer of that Newport Jazz Festival. Now's his chance. He walks over to him. Here's Ashley Kahn, music historian, journalist, and author.
He goes up to George and he goes, "George, you can't have a festival without me, Miles Davis."
George hesitates. He knows Miles and his reputation. Besides,
The bookings had already been done. The poster was put together, the program was printed,
but Miles isn't backing down.
and he keeps pestering him. And he knows already that he needs to represent a certain level of modern jazz that he doesn't have one band for.
George relents and adds a hastily arranged jam session. They're set to play on Sunday, 17th of July. Finally, it's here, a glorious summer's evening, the sun dipping over crowds of expectant jazz fans packed into an open-air park. Miles hovers in the stage wings. This is his big chance to get back in the ring, reveal to everyone what he's capable of, showcase his new style. As well as his sound, Miles has thought deeply about his look.
For Miles, clothing was always intentional. It was never an accident.
Here's Jason Jules, fashion writer and co-author of the book Black Ivy.
He wore a black bow tie, seersucker jacket, and black trousers, tailored. Essentially, he was wearing a Black Ivy look before anybody else was in that world. So for a black musician or artist or politician or protester wearing Ivy League clothing was a huge statement. Actually, a lot of people would see it as offensive. A lot of people would see it as subversive. But it was a statement that said, we are equal to the people who are trying to oppress us, and we deserve respect. I think that look was him saying, I'm no longer compromising. I'm no longer allowing myself to be defined by other people's expectations. This is who I am. This is what I am. Here I am.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for Count Basie, Jimmy Rushing.
The crowd goes quiet. MC for the night, the great Duke Ellington, introduces the makeshift band. Most of the audience is unaware that Miles is even on the bill.
On down to Miles Davis, trumpet. Miles Davis.
Miles is nervous. He's heard rumors that the speakers aren't working very well tonight. What if nobody can hear him? Trumpet in hand, Miles strides straight up to the microphone. He's taking no chances, cups the round bell of his horn right around the front of the mic. They play one song, then into another called Round Midnight, written by pianist Thelonious Monk, who's on stage out.
And everyone is applauding and everyone is loving this.
But the most important person in the crowd that night is director of popular albums for Columbia Records, George Avakian. Miles had already been pestering him at every opportunity. Here's George Avakian speaking to Ravi Coltrane, son of the great John Coltrane, for the BBC radio series Miles 10 Years On in 2001.
Miles started saying to me, "Hey, George, sign me up. I want to record with you."
George, like everyone else, knew about Miles's junkie reputation, but on that Sunday night, watching him on that stage, he is captivated.
It was a spellbinding performance, and My brother was listening with me. He said, why don't you go ahead and do it? If you don't, somebody else will, because after tonight, people are going to say, hey, Miles is back, Miles is back.
Most industry folk still have him down as a drug addict who might die before he can put anything out. But George also knows what he heard.
And I said, look, forget it. This guy, when he's straight, is so good that he might be another Dizzy Gillespie.
George decides to take a risk. He's going all in. Miles signs a contract with a deal better than anything he's had before, worth good money. In fact, it's second only to Columbia's top-selling Hollywood star, Doris Day. It's only been a couple of years since Miles Davis was being pummeled to the floor by addiction, pointing his trumpet. But he's fought his way back, found his style and his look. And tonight, he's delivered a championship-winning blow. Sugar Ray Robinson and Jack Johnson would have been proud. Miles now has a real shot at becoming a star, of having the kind of success he's always dreamed of, and the money and fame that goes along with it. Next time on Legend, the